What up, y'all? DCFAYGOGUY. Today we got a really great video idea. This was an idea suggested to me by Rob McCoy. It was on the most important albums video that I put back last year in the fall. I thought it was a really great idea. I actually took a screenshot of his screen name so I could remember. I just never did it until right now. And this is such a great video idea that I actually would like to see other Juggalo YouTubers make their version of this, because I feel like everyone's list may be different, but I feel like there's a lot of albums that are going to be very similar. So let's jump right into it. This is crucial albums that every Juggalo should listen to. It was a really great idea because I think there's a lot of new Juggalos coming into the scene. There's a lot of new Juggalos coming into the scene with Ouija Mag doing what he's doing with Chapter 17. And I think there's a lot of them that may not even know the history of Psychopathic Records to the fullest. There's a lot of them that don't really understand the relationship between ICP and Twiztid. I think a lot of these newer Juggalos are pretty quick to write off Twiztid and join that fuck Twiztid bandwagon without really even knowing the impact that they truly had with Psychopathic Records. I'm kind of diving in already without really doing the proper thing. So first and foremost, every Juggalo coming into this scene should listen to every Joker's card. I think that is very important to listen to every single Joker's card that they've ever put out. Definitely the first six. I think if you only focus on the second deck without really diving into the first deck, you're definitely doing yourself an injustice. The first set, the first six, was huge, impactful. It told this grand story, and that's really what hooked a lot of the old school Juggalos into this scene. They followed this story for 10 years, and yeah, there was a lot of people that when they found out what the big reveal was, they weren't really happy with it, and they basically said fuck off and left. But there's a lot of them that stuck around through that message because, you know, it was deep. You know what I mean? Like, if you listen to Thy Unveiling and you hear them talk about that magic, it's fucking real. So definitely every Joker's card I feel like is important for a Juggalo to listen to. If I was going to dive in a little bit and just kind of narrow it down for people that may be like, well, where should I start? You should definitely check out Carnival of Carnage first, because you're getting like that first like foretelling of it. So I feel like Carnival of Carnage is definitely one of the most important ones to listen to. And then I guess if you wanted to skip over Ringmaster, you could. Again, I wouldn't. I would listen to every single Joker's card. And honestly, if you're coming into the scene and you found this video, or you know, maybe you got down a couple years ago, but you haven't really deep dove into ICPs. You're mainly just here to fuck with Ouija. I would say listen to every Joker's card, but definitely Carnival of Carnage, maybe Riddlebox, just because it's held by many Juggalos as their best, as well as Great Malenko is. So there are some Joker cards you can maybe skip around to. So if you're going to do that, Carnival of Carnage you absolutely need to listen to, because that's the groundwork that sets the tone for the six Joker cards. I would say go ahead and give Riddlebox or Malenko a listen, just because they're highly regarded by Juggalos, and I think knowing those albums is important. If you go in and you hear people talk about Malenko and you have no idea what music was put out during Malenko, then that's definitely not going to be a good look for you. But then jumping from there, definitely the Wraith Shangri-La, because that was the big reveal of what the grand story was. So every Joker card, absolutely. But if you're going to skip through Carnival of Carnage, definitely the Wraith Shangri-La. But if you're going to jump around through the Joker cards, then, you know, maybe Malenko and maybe Riddlebox, just so that you understand why people praise those albums so much. And Ringmaster really gets a lot of praise too. So again, just listen to all the Joker cards. Don't listen to me dissecting it. Just listen to every Joker card. Set aside time, listen to them all, just so you can also see kind of the evolution as things go. So the next one on my list, and the reason I put this on here is, again, because I feel like a lot of people don't fully understand the full, like, grand epicness of Psychopathic Records. But I think every artist that's ever been on Psychopathic Records, you should listen to their debut album. And the reason why I say their debut albums is because Violent J almost always had a hand in those debut albums. You know, you go listen to Most Tasteless, Violent J, there's some definite Violent J influences there. You listen to Hatchet Warrior, Violent J's on that album quite a bit. You go listen to The Harvest. I'm trying to jump around through the artists and think of the album. You listen to The Harvest, you listen to One Less G in the Hood. There's influences there that you can tell, like, Jay kind of sat in during studio sessions. He gave his ideas, he gave his input. So I think every single artist that's ever been on Psychopathic Records, go listen to their debut album and then kind of understand the like impact that them coming in and doing what they did had for Psychopathic Records to get it to what it is today. I know it's kind of a shell of its former self, you know, with it just mainly being ICP with the two subsidiaries, you know, Chapter 17, Ear Drug Music. It's kind of a shell of its former self. So I think going and listening to all those albums, especially during the prime of the Family era, will definitely do a lot of good of understanding what Psychopathic Records was and why there are so many juggalos that really praise that era as like the golden era. Which brings me to the golden fucking era album, and that is Tales from the Lotus Pod. You have to go listen to this because I feel like juggalos need to understand what Dark Lotus was and how epic Dark Lotus was. You know, it was Twiztid, it was ICP originally. They brought on Blaze. Eventually, they brought on Mars. They had a fallout with Mars, and then they brought on ABK. So I would say probably listen to both the Red and the Gold Tales, just so you understand why people praise the Red one, but then you also understand that ABK was part of it. You know what I mean? Because he signed with Psychopathic around the time. So when they fell out with Mars, it was an easy decision for them to replace it with ABK. Honestly, they should have left it at 5 Petals from the beginning, but that was their decision to make, not mine. But definitely Tales from the Lotus Pod, because I think understanding how great Dark Lotus was, how the concept was amazing, and just how like epic that album was that set off the Family era. I mean, that album ends, I know it ends with .com, but I always feel like it ends with Juggalo Family, and that literally was the birth of the Family era. And that's what sent Psychopathic Records into like a golden age for many years. So understanding that, and then understanding why Twiztid leaving was so fucking shattering for a lot of juggalos. And I don't know, they tried to leave in 2003. I think their goal always was to go do their own thing. But yeah, definitely Tales from Lotus Pod, just so you understand the epicness of Dark Lotus. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't know Dark Lotus, you need to know Dark Lotus. And, you know, maybe that'll open your mind a little bit and not be so narrow-minded with, like, this fuck the past kind of thing. Whatever, focused on the future. So then the next one I think is very crucial. And the reason why I put this out there is I think because understanding this album's praise, because a lot of juggalos highly praise this album. Honestly, for me, this album is so highly praised that it's actually taken it down a notch for me. And I feel like it's put up on too much of a pedestal. I acknowledge it as a really great album, but for me, it kind of takes it down a peg that everybody gives it so much praise, and that is Abominations by Twiztid. This is the album that caused... I mean, there were other leading factors, but this was the album that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back and caused Twiztid to leave. There wasn't enough copies ordered for the pre-orders, and so a lot of juggalos didn't get their CD on time, and this was a huge, this was a huge deal to Twiztid. This was an album that was very important to them. Obviously, in the early stages of promoting it, they were told not to promote it because there were other things that Psychopathic wanted to kind of push first. Obviously, my mentality with that album always was, Twiztid, all you got to do is say there's a new Twiztid album, juggalos are going to eat it up. Because at that time, they were like the fucking golden boys. Like, Ouija is the golden boy now. Twiztid was the golden boys then. Like, anytime somebody mentioned Twiztid doing anything, there was like 90% of juggalos that were down for it. Because Twiztid was just killing shit. They really were killing shit. And I don't think a lot of juggalos these days that weren't around for that understand that. Like, when I say Ouija is the golden boy today, they were the golden boys then, you need to understand that. A lot of people eat up what Ouija Mac does now. He releases 20 albums a year. Anytime it's mentioned that he's working on something, the juggalos eat it up. That was Twiztid 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So understand how great Abominations was, and understand that the lack of promotion, the lack of the lack of effort into that release is what broke the camel's back and caused Twiztid to leave and become the entity that they are now with Magic Ninja Entertainment. So Abominations, absolutely an essential album. I feel like you should listen to and understand its place in Juggalo history. And so the last one that I have is the Mud, Water, Air, and Blood. This is the last Dark Lotus album to ever come out, and it came out in 2014. It was after Twiztid had left, and when Twiztid left, there was a lot of questions. What's going to happen with Lotus? What's going to happen with Rydas? What's going to happen with The Gathering? There were all kinds of questions. And in February of 2014, Juggalo Day, matter of fact, every single one of them posted up on their social medias that silhouette of the Lotus pod, the hand sign up, and the Juggalo world just fucking erupted. Because here you had, they were split up, Twiztid had left, you didn't know if they were cool with each other, and you hear that they're in the studio working together on a new Dark Lotus album. That shit was monumental. Now, there's a lot of controversy behind that album now, that I think a lot of people hate that album because of it. You know, Twiztid was asking for masters to do the album instead of payment. That was kind of their form of payment. And at one point in time, it did bother me too. But I also, as somebody that was part of a collaborative YouTube channel and now I'm not, I have videos that I've put out that I'm kind of like, they have ownership of that. And at any moment, they could delete them. And in fact, I think they have deleted some. So just kind of wanting to go download them and re-release them on my channel is a desire. So I understand Twiztid's desire to want to get the masters for some of their albums that they put a lot of work into, so they can repress them and, you know, build a catalog for themselves. Because ICP runs into this issue all the time with trying to repress Riddlebox, Great Malenko, Amazing Juggalo Brothers. They have to consult with the label that owns the masters. And a lot of times if that label is like, nah, fuck you guys, they can't repress that album. And I think that was something Twiztid was trying to kind of rectify for themselves. So while I felt like it was shady at the time, I understand why they did it. So I'm not mad at that anymore. I think there was better ways things could have been done. And I've talked about this in videos before, where I feel like ICP and Twiztid could have worked out a deal and signed a contract where, you know, Twiztid puts forth X amount of money, Psychopathic puts forth X amount of money. They repress it under a deal where, you know, percentages are then split up for each of them, and they can keep these albums getting repressed. The Hatchet Man stays on it. The Magic Ninja Entertainment logo is on it. Everybody's happy. That's the way the business could have went. That's not the way that it went, but it is what it is. I think Mud, Water, Air, and Blood, it was the last Dark Lotus album, and it's monumental. Like, when you, for a lot of juggalos, I'm just gonna say for myself, when I listen to that album, and in the words of CPN, that album was on legendary status, because by that point they'd already done so many. And again, just hearing them together again, having that feeling like everything's okay. Just because they're split up, everything's going to be okay. They're going to continue to work together. That's kind of a somber thought now, but at that time, it was like, it was that cushion of everything's going to be okay, even though they're separate. They're going to continue to kill shit together. And that's what that album really kind of encapsulates for me. Obviously, going into that now, for a lot of other juggalos that have never heard it, they're not going to really have that. But I think it's also important to know just how epic that was, that they were split up, but still came together and put out a fantastic album. But that's subjective. Maybe everybody else doesn't like that album and they think it fucking sucks. But yeah, those are my albums. Those are the crucial albums I think every juggalo should listen to. So if you are a Juggalo YouTuber, I would love to see you guys make a video, give kind of your thoughts, and give your albums that you think every Juggalo should listen to. And don't put a blanket out there and say every album, because I mean, obviously we want this to kind of be a guide. But yeah, those are albums I think every Juggalo should listen to. If you don't make YouTube videos, tell me down below what you think are some crucial albums that every Juggalo should listen to. I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.